Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving my reaction to the Jake Paul versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video. And just before we get into it, I did want to give a little shout out to the Patreon. Got a few members now, and it is, growing, and it's great to see. I really appreciate anybody who's joined. And I mean, this week's been a really good week for predictions for me, and so yeah, I mean, if you wanted to support the channel or request any videos for me to do myself in the way of combat sports related videos, then feel free to join. I really appreciate it. And so let's get straight into this though. So Jake Paul again wins, and he wins via unanimous decision. I got my prediction bang on right for this. I mean, it wasn't exactly anything that I didn't really expect coming into this fight, to be completely honest. I mean, if you go back to Cesar Chavez's performance against Canelo, obviously he was able to survive against Canelo, and it was, a performance where perhaps on paper it looks good because he was able to survive. But if you actually go through his performance, he was really poor. He didn't really throw anything. It was realistically, just a complete beatdown of from Canelo on Chavez Jr. And I mean, Chavez Jr., he's got such a defensive style. To be fair, it reminds me a bit of a journeyman, to be completely honest, where he just really isn't wanting to let his hands go, isn't really wanting to trade, is happy just covering up on the back foot. And I mean, he's pretty much gone and done the exact same thing here. He never really throws. He is quite lazy with his offense, and at the end of the day, it just wasn't going to be an entertaining fight, and I don't believe that this was an entertaining fight. I mean, whenever Chavez did throw, which was very minimal times, he was, landing quite well, and perhaps even hurting Jake Paul a little bit, but it never was followed up by enough which was ever going to be enough to actually do a serious or a significant amount of damage to Paul. And again, that's another fight now where Jake Paul has fought another 40-year-old fighter who, he's just basically not been able to land a punch on because, well, he's not really throwing many punches against. And I mean, Jake Paul wasn't throwing enough good enough punches himself to be able to get Chavez Jr. out of there. Again, it was a very defensive style, so it is difficult to get fighters like that out of there. But again, like I say, at the same time, it's now another fight in which we see basically a retired fighter just going in against Jake Paul and just not throwing too much, because I mean, there's a lot of speculation around if Jake Paul pays off his opponents and things like that to just throw a few punches, make it look like they're half decent, and then just look awful for the rest of the fight against Jake Paul. And it seems like that was the case again. And I think, to be completely honest, if anything, these type of fights are just stunting any sort of development in which Jake Paul is having. I think it is really creating bad habits and negative tendencies in his game. I mean, he's not bringing his punches back. He's dropping his guard a lot more than what he used to. He's, maybe throwing a bit more variety of punches because he's allowed to, and he's allowed that time and that space to, but he's bringing his back foot off the floor continuously when he just doesn't need to be when he's throwing punches, and he's coming in off balance. It's becoming less and less accurate. Yes, he occasionally lands the big punch, but you would like to see that happen just a lot more due to the fact of his opponent really not doing anything defensively that impressive, to stop himself from being a target there to just be hit. And so again, like I say, it's bad habits coming through, and that is again just down to the fact that he really isn't trying to actually test himself just yet. And I mean, now apparently he's going to be ranked with the WBC, I think in the top 15, which I just think is stupid and isn't deserving at all. I mean, there's so many. I suppose the cruiserweight division isn't in a good spot, but at the same time, you could just name a far better selection of fighters in which I'm sure have definitely earned their position to be in the top 15 rankings. Even, a fighter like Pascal, who went on to lose this weekend in the cruiserweight division, at least he has fought at a really high level and has competed at that level. So yes, he's on the older side, but at least somebody like that is deserving to be in the rankings. Somebody like Jake Paul just isn't, because he hasn't fought anybody. And, well, the only time that he did fight somebody of decent boxing, I suppose, ability to an extent of similar age to him was Tommy Fury, and he lost. And Tommy Fury's awful in himself. So again, like I say, it's just he doesn't deserve to be ranked in the WBC in anybody's opinion from what it seems. He had a face-off with Zurdo Ramirez, which I think was just a little kind of money grab type of face off, to be completely honest. I mean, Gilberto probably was told to do the face off, and I just I don't know if I actually see that fight happening again. I know he called out Canelo and Gervonta Davis and Anthony Joshua, but I mean, he also called out Badu Jack, and that was a name in which I thought perhaps he might be willing to give somebody like a Jake Paul an opportunity. I have a feeling that, though, the thing that might stop somebody like a Badu Jack and a Gilberto Ramirez would be His Excellency getting involved, because of course His Excellency is probably one of the only people realistically in the boxing scene that would be willing to match the money in which Jake Paul would offer you for a fight. So, you know, His Excellency, due to the fact that he doesn't like watching Jake Paul fight and he doesn't encourage these fights, which is a good thing, he might be willing to kind of force the fighters to move away from Jake Paul and not give him that hype and that kind of want and stuff like that. So that might happen, and then at that point, I don't really know where Jake Paul goes. I think at this point in his career, if he goes on to fight yet again another kind of retired fighter, or yet again another name in which was maybe big 10, 15 years ago, nobody's going to watch it, and I feel like the viewers are dropping a bit. Yes, I mean, he set a new record for kind of highest gate in the Honda Center, but again, you kind of look at the record in which he's breaking. It's like a $1 million gate, which isn't bad, but I mean, it's the Honda Center isn't a massive arena, and it's kind of the biggest fights in which it's had there is kind of a Canelo versus a Hatton, and that was before Canelo had became a kind of megastar, and Garcia versus Fonseca, which again wasn't a big fight, and then before that I think it was Nate Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal. So like I say, it seems like just because it's Vegas, they're not, these kind of events which aren't proper boxing events are selling better in that type of a place, because like I say, it's Vegas, and it's not, no, it's not Vegas, it's somewhere in America, I forget. But it's still, nonetheless, it's in a position where the fans, I suppose, are just willing to go and splash their money at random events. And again, like I said, I just don't think that Honda Center record actually means that it's sold well. I would be interested to see how good the actual pay-per-view vibes were for this event, because I mean, I knew for a fact that I weren't willing to go on and spend my money to watch this pay-per-view, in my opinion. But to speak about the co-main, again, that was a bit of a lackluster performance from Gilberto Ramirez. He did what he had to do. He won via unanimous decision. He remains WBO and WBA Cruiserweight World Champion. He took time to grow into the fight and did fight at a slower pace. You could see that the power from Dorticos was there. The movement from Ramirez was poor. He wasn't circling and pivoting the way that he did against Billum Smith, and the way in which we've seen from him coming into the cruiserweight division. I was seeing that there was an opportunity for him to really try and use his speed, use his movement, and outclass an older Dorticos who, whenever Ramirez did use his speed and did try and time Dorticos, he was able to land quite well. I was, like I say, seeing this as an opportunity for Ramirez to really try and go out there and get a stoppage and put on a statement victory before going and trying to fight for the the unification fight against Opetaia. But now a lot of the fans are rooting against Zurdo Ramirez, are really thinking that Jai Opetaia is the superior boxer. And I mean, Ramirez has now got it to prove. Even though he's the one with the two belts, he's going in, perhaps if he does go on to fight Jai Opetaia, to that fight with the fans against him, having to prove that he is the better fighter, and if he is the better fighter or not. But I mean, at the moment, I agree that I think Jai Opetaia is the better fighter. It just wasn't a good performance. I mean, you could say that he was underestimating, I suppose, Dorticos to an extent. But again, he looked like he really kind of declined in his actual ability in that fight, and that wasn't, like I say, a great performance from him, and that's not what the fans were wanting to see, and not what fans are even expecting to see from Ramirez, because he has looked good since coming into cruiserweight division. But again, like I say, that just wasn't a good performance from him, and so we'll have to wait and see what ends up happening with that fight. Of course, he had the face off with Jake Paul. But like I say, I feel like His Excellency is probably going to overrule that and make him fight Opetaia. Hopefully that's what's happened. Hopefully that's what's going to happen. I mean, he did call out Opetaia. He said for him to get his number and to ring him. So maybe that's going to happen. Opetaia seemed to go along with it and was asking for his numbers. So hopefully that will happen. But like I say, we'll have to wait and see. But then one fight in which was really entertaining on this card. I mean, there was a couple on the undercard that were decent and had a good level of entertainment. I was intrigued to see Holly Holm come into the boxing scene again and make that return, and she looked good, she looked dominant. She didn't throw a tremendous kind of variation of punches and didn't throw that many combinations, but what she was throwing was good and it was landing clean, and she had a good display there, so I was impressed by her. But then the true fight in which all the fans were excited and good and happy to see was Floyd Schofield winning via TKO in round 1 against Tevin to become WBA Continental Lightweight Champion. Of course, coming into this fight, he was coming into it off the back of the kind of fall through and fall out of the Floyd Schofield versus Shakur fight, where Schofield pulled out last minute due to an injury, and then of course Josh Padley came in, but this performance has definitely made people forget about that and has arguably made him a bit of a star, to be completely honest. And I mean, Golden Boy arguably do have a new star here and have the potential to really move him on well. Will he get thrown into the winner of Zepeda versus Stevenson? I'm not entirely sure. I mean, if his excellency gets involved, then maybe, but I mean, there might be a rematch clause with that, so we might be having to wait and see. I mean, the fight in which I feel like a lot of the fans want to see at the moment is now Schofield against the winner of Mason and Noakes, because I think that just will be a great fight. So hopefully we'll see the winner of that. For Tevin, I mean, he looked bad and he looked hurt, and in his last fight against Zepeda, yes, he was able to get through all the rounds, but he looked really badly hurt there as well and got injured. And again, like I say, he just couldn't deal with it, and this was kind of the same type of fight here, but he actually got hurt early on, and Schofield did enough to be able to get him out of there, of course. So realistically, I feel like Tevin Farmer hasn't got any more to prove into boxing scene, and if he is getting hurt in every single one of his fights quite badly that he's fighting in at the moment, then maybe it is perhaps time for him to retire. I mean, I'm just putting it out there, just throwing it out there. I mean, something like a Floyd Schofield, he is a high level opposition, but I just don't feel like Tevin Farmer would want to take the drop down, and now he's lost via stoppage in round 1, he would have to do that, and I just don't think, like I say, he'd be wanting to do that. So perhaps this could be the end of Tevin Farmer's career. Like I say, he's been a great gatekeeper and he's really relit up his career in these last few fights, but again, like I say, this was just the end. And I mean, it was, I suppose, nice to see that Floyd Schofield went back to his aggressive, fast starting style. It was definitely kind of pushed away from him from doing in that last fight against Giron, because I mean, it was a Mexican style Giron. If you stand toe to toe from the get go, of course Giron probably would have just stood there and tried to go toe to toe as well, and then it would have been a bit messier of a fight. So I think Schofield is showcasing that he can box really well, but then he also can just go out and blitz you in the first round, and that's a really good dynamic to have, and it makes him entertaining. And he is showing he has good levels of power as well, and he's only 22 years of age, so you can see these improvements coming through with every single one of his performances. And I think he is again still growing into his body, and I think he's growing into his size as well. And like I say, I think he is got some great matchups there available to him, and I'm excited to see them. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like video if you did, indeed like video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.